Hello, welcome to another episode of the Weekly Sizzle. Today we're going to go over 3 stories on 1851 that I think deserve another look. The first story has to do with marketing your item 19. All brands, or all franchise brands, have an item 19, and it's an amazing tool they can use to appeal to franchisees, answer their most burning questions, which usually have to do with how much money they can make. But there are right ways and wrong ways to go about using it in your marketing. One very important thing to keep in mind is that there are legal restrictions surrounding how you can use your item 19. So it's very important to make sure that you're following the law, that you're basing it off of the state that you're living in. But with that said, there are different things you can do to sort of make it front and center as part of your marketing, especially using it on your website. There are a lot of great nuggets in that story on 1851 and a lot of stuff for brands to chew on when they're deciding how to use their item 19 in their marketing. The second story I want to talk about has to do with the melding of old school marketing and modern techniques. This is personified in the story on 1851 by Welcome Mat Services. I think in today's digital world, a lot of brands assume that the old-fashioned way of marketing may not cut it anymore, but the truth is, some of the more traditional marketing efforts can be the most effective. So I think it's worth people kind of taking a look at their strategy and making sure that while they're keeping up with what's changing and what's becoming more modern as far as computers and technology are involved, making sure that they're also not letting the more traditional effective ways of marketing fall by the wayside. Melding the two and sort of having a half and half strategy can sometimes be the best course of action for brands. Of course, every brand is different and some things may not make sense for some companies, but it is important to make sure that you're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater as far as what works is concerned. And my personal favorite story of the week, not just because I wrote it, has to do with KFC bringing Colonel Sanders back for their marketing. This is interesting. This has sort of been a trend lately. McDonald's did it with the Hamburglar, bringing back this sort of updated, hyper-realistic, almost sort of hipster Hamburglar character. We spoke to Jason Vaughn, COO of Lenny's Sub Sandwiches and former director of operations at Yum Brands, which also had, KFC, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, about his thoughts on this sort of trend lately. Obviously, this is something that can definitely work for brands, this sort of nostalgic pool of mascots or spokespeople from the past, but it can also open up the door to its own unique challenges and potential pitfalls. It can sometimes make a brand look like they're sort of spinning their wheels or desperate to reach out to customers and sort of reverting back to the old instead of marching off and doing their own new thing. At the same time, it can be very effective. People do respond to nostalgia and people do have emotional connections to brand spokespeople and brand mascots. But then you look at brands like Chipotle or Popeyes who don't have a mascot or an instantly recognizable brand spokesperson, and they're doing amazingly well in the market right now. It's definitely something that every brand's going to have to decide for themselves, but before they make the jump of returning to an old character or an old marketing routine, it's definitely something that they should sort of sit down and think about whether it makes sense for the story they're trying to tell today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week for another edition of the Weekly Sizzle.